Welcome to Wolf Recaps.
The movie revolves around IP Man, a renowned Wing Chun master. He has dedicated his life to the practice and promotion of Wing Chun, a traditional Chinese martial art known for its practicality, efficiency, and close-range combat techniques. IP Man is one of the most respected martial artists in the region and has played a significant role in popularizing Wing Chun. He has a son, IP Ching, who is considered disobedient and arrogant. The movie begins with IP Man being diagnosed with cancer. The doctor suggests he undergo chemotherapy, but he remains silent and returns home. There, an African-American man visits the Wing Chun Academy, and in the hallway, his face lights up when he sees a picture of IP Man with his students. But they start to pick on him because of his language and appearance. This leads to a fight, and to everyone's surprise, the man overpowers the bullies. But just as he's about to kick him, IP Man appears and knocks him down. However, instead of getting angry, the man is in awe of IP Man and embraces him. He then introduces himself as Bruce Lee's student and reveals that he was sent here to invite IP Man to the US to watch a karate fight. The man then hands him a flight ticket and a kung fu guidebook written by Bruce Lee. IP Man is happy with the invitation, but he rejects it, saying he doesn't have much time left. He then excuses himself, but the man decides to leave the tickets with IP Man's student in case he changes his mind about coming to the US. Meanwhile, at school, IP Ching gets in a fight with his classmate and ends up leaving him with serious injuries. The school headmaster learns about the incident and calls IP Man to complain about his son's behavior. It turns out IP Ching frequently fights with other boys, and fed up with his behavior, the headmaster expels him from the school. Later, IP Man arrives at the scene and apologizes on his son's behalf. He requests the headmaster give him another chance. However, the latter declines. He instead advises IP Man to send his son to study abroad, as no other school in China would accept him at this time of the year. IP Man then returns home, and after a brief consideration, he decides to take the headmaster's advice and send his son to the US the following night. He calls his best friend, Fatso, to look after his son while he's away. IP Ching learns about his father's plan and protests, saying he wants to stay in China and learn kung fu like his father. He also says that he acts up because he's fed up with being blamed for his mom's death. This infuriates IP Man, and he slaps his son. But before things could escalate, Fatso intervenes and breaks them apart. The following day, IP Man flies to the US to find a good school for his son. Once there, he's picked up by a man named Khan, who drives him to the Chinese Benevolent Association. The Chinese Benevolent Association is an organization that represents and serves the interests of the Chinese community in the US. Its primary objectives are to provide support and assistance to Chinese immigrants and their descendants, promote cultural preservation, and foster social harmony. IP Man wants to enroll his son into a Chinese school, for which he requires permits from the association leader. There, IP Man meets Master Wan and a group of kung fu masters. However, before he could state the purpose of his visit, the master takes a dig at IP Man because his apprentice, Bruce Lee, is teaching kung fu to foreigners. Not only that, Bruce has written a kung fu guidebook in English. Master Wan fears that the foreigners could use the kung fu skills of the Chinese against them in the future. This almost leads to a full-blown fight, but IP Man controls himself and returns to his place of accommodation. He then calls his son back home, but the latter refuses to speak to him. The scene then cuts to Master Wan training his daughter, Yona. However, it becomes evident that the girl has no interest in martial arts. Instead, she wants to become a cheerleader. The following morning, Khan takes IP Man to meet his friend, hoping to get some people to secure the transfer papers for his son. However, they are once again left disappointed. Later that night, IP Man attends Bruce Lee's event, giving him a pleasant surprise. After the show, both of them have a conversation, and Bruce Lee agrees to help him secure the transfer paper. He also introduces his master to his student named Hartman, who is serving in the US Marines. Suddenly, a group of white karate students arrive at the diner and challenge Bruce Lee to a fight. The kung fu expert accepts the challenge without thinking twice, and they head out. As expected, he beats up the rookies without even breaking a sweat, showcasing his extremely aggressive skills. The following day, IP Man goes to the school with the necessary transfer documents. However, he's also informed that he also requires a permit from the Chinese Benevolent Association. When he continues to insist, the school officials give him an alternate option. IP Man will have to donate $10,000 to the school in order for them to overlook the paperwork requirements. The scene then cuts to Yona's school, where she's selected to be on the cheerleading team. A jealous girl named Becky protests Iona's inclusion, but the teacher brushes her aside. Later, IP Man arrives at the school and encounters a crowd of students gathered around Iona, being bullied by Becky and her boyfriend's gang. They hold her and chop her hair in order to force her out of the cheerleading team. Iona eventually breaks free and pushes Becky towards a fence, causing her to scratch her own face. But as Iona is about to be caught by the fence door, IP Man intervenes and pushes her away, accidentally getting his arm caught in the process. Nevertheless, IP Man uses his kung fu skills to defeat the young thugs with swift and effective moves. This leaves the entire crowd impressed and speechless. Later, after returning home, Becky complains to her mother about the incident. This infuriates the arrogant mother, and she calls her husband, who works at US Immigration. Meanwhile, Iona arrives with IP Man and tries to talk to her father about the permit, but he's taken aback by the state of her face. He turns red with anger as he's unable to accept the fact that his daughter got beaten up in a fight. Therefore, instead of pitying her, he slaps her, making her cry. IP Man takes Iona's side, but Master Wan tells him off, saying he can never understand what Chinese immigrants go through in a foreign land. IP Man then proceeds to leave, but Master Wan stops him and challenges him for a fight. A long battle ensues, and both of them match each other stride for stride. They are eventually forced to stop when an earthquake occurs out of nowhere. After a while, when the situation calms down, IP Man proceeds to head back home, and he takes Iona along with him. He then calls his son back in China, but the boy still refuses to speak to him. Meanwhile, Bruce Lee's student Hartman tries to persuade Barton Geddes, the gunnery sergeant at his base, to include Chinese martial arts, particularly Wing Chun, in their close-quarters combat training. However, Geddes is an unabashed racist, and he insists that the Marines' current karate program is far superior to any other martial art. When Hartman disagrees, Geddes makes him fight Colin Frater, the Marines' karate sensei. Hartman tries his best, but he is eventually defeated by the seasoned sensei. In the next scene, Iona somehow manages to acquire a permit for IP Man, but the latter tears it apart as he's aware that she got it through deceit. Instead, he insists on obtaining the permit directly from Master Wan through his genuine willingness. However, Iona shrugs it off and invites him to the Chinese festival. At the Marines' headquarters, Hartman shows a Chinese kung fu demo to his commander, which impresses him. The latter then orders Barton to learn it and gives Hartman permission to go to the Chinese festival to do more research on it. This annoys Barton, and he tells Colin about it. Upon learning this, Colin decides to go to the festival to prove that Americanized karate is better than kung fu. The movie then cuts to the day of the festival. IP Man is in attendance, while Hartman is busy recording the event. After a while, Iona approaches IP Man and advises him to sit with the other masters, but he politely declines. Meanwhile, at home, Master Wan is busy with some paperwork when suddenly Becky's father, Walters, comes barging in and arrests him in relation to an illegal Chinese immigrant case. On the other hand, Colin arrives at the festival and picks a fight with the Kung Fu masters. He challenges them to a battle. The masters accept the challenge, but Colin defeats them one by one. However, when he's about to strike a female master, IP Man intervenes and kicks him away. This leads to a deadly battle between the two, which goes back and forth for a while. But in the end, it is IP Man who emerges victorious, much to everyone's joy. As the people at the festival celebrate, Iona's uncle arrives and informs her about her father's arrest. Worried, Iona immediately rushes to the immigration office with IP Man and her uncle. Meanwhile, Barton learns about Colin's defeat. This infuriates him further, and he decides to pay the Chinese Benevolent Association a visit. In the detention, Walter accuses Master Wan of forging fraudulent documents to help illegal immigrants settle in the US. Master Wan denies the allegations, but nevertheless, Walter sends his men to detain everyone. Later, IP Man and Iona arrive at the immigration office. However, they're stopped by the African-American man from earlier. It turns out the man works at the immigration office, and he warns Ip Man about Walter's plans to arrest everyone at the association. Iona's uncle then calls his friend to alert everyone about the impending arrests. However, suddenly Barton arrives there and starts beating everyone up. He demands to know about Master Wan's whereabouts, mistaking him for IP Man. Unfortunately, the people at the association give in and direct Barton towards the immigration office. As Barton heads there, IP Man learns about the attack and returns to the association. He is furious at Barton, but he controls his emotions and tells everyone at the association to vacate the place to avoid arrest. Meanwhile, after reaching the immigration office, Barden asks for Walter's permission to take Master Wan to the Marines' headquarters and challenge him to a fight. The cunning officer gives him the permission, and so Barden forcefully takes the Master away. There, they engage in another deadly fight, with both showcasing their impressive moves. But in the end, Barden injures Master Wan badly and defeats him. Elsewhere, IP Man takes the association people to Bruce Lee's gym for treatment. As a result, they finally realize their mistake and apologize to IP Man for making harsh judgments about him. Later, IP Man calls his son back home, but the result is the same. The boy doesn't want to speak. Hence, IP Man finally decides to come clean about his cancer. He reveals that he doesn't have time left and that his condition is deteriorating by the day. Upon learning of this, IP Ching finally speaks to his father. The latter apologizes to his son for slapping him and promises to teach him martial arts after returning home. IP Ching is stunned, and he breaks into tears. IP Man then comforts his son and promises to return home as soon as possible after finishing his business in the US. The following day, IP Man reveals that he beat up Colin and challenges Barden to a fight. Another intense battle follows, and Barden scores a lead in the beginning as Ip Man's cancer starts to slow his body down. However, our brave hero refuses to give up, and he fights his way back. Eventually, he manages to defeat the sergeant with a final blow on his neck. After some time, Master Wan recovers, and he reconciles with IP Man. He also finally gives him the permit to enroll his son in a US school. Following this, IP Man flies back home, and IP Ching is happy to see him. He asks his father to teach him martial arts, and the latter agrees on the condition that he'll only teach him once. Therefore, IP Ching films his father as he shows him his moves. IP Man eventually passes away, and the movie ends with Bruce Lee attending his funeral and paying his final respects.
Thank you for joining us on Wolf Recaps. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more exciting recaps.